Emily and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing my June book haul. So I have acquired quite a few books in the past couple of months and haven't had a chance to sit down and do a book haul. I actually was pretty good at not buying books for quite a while given I was away for quite a bit of time and didn't have a lot of luggage space. So buying books was not the best idea until I knew how much space I had left to bring back with me and buy more books again. So there's been some new stuff that has come out that I'm just really excited about, and other stuff that I have read that I just wanted to own. So without further ado, let's just jump into the book haul. This isn't in any order, so I'm going to be jumping around of when I bought these essentially. But first we're going to start off with Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. So this book I have started, but I haven't completed it yet. I bought this while I was in Peru because I had finished the books that I brought with me, so I felt like it was justified to buy another book to bring with me into the jungle. Plus, I just feel like it was just fun reading things physically. So I wanted another physical book. I did not end up finishing this one, and I think I'm going to just put it back on my TBR for a little while and find a time when I feel like reading it, and then I'm going to pick it back up again, because I feel like I just haven't been super into it as I want to be every time I've picked it up. I have liked it, but I think I'm just going to save this for another time. It's like a temporary, situation, like I'll come back to it. But essentially, this book, it follows this girl, and she has moved to this small town after something happened. I don't know if we know what happened or not, but something happened to her back in the small town or whatever she lived. Maybe not small town, but wherever she's from, something happened, and she's kind of anxious to get away, and that's when she moves to this small town where there's this guy, and his name is Archer, and he is mute, and he's kind of not had the best life. He's been through a lot of trauma, and I think he's selectively mute, I'm assuming. That's my assumption. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so he's kind of a bit of a loner, and so she kind of intrigued by him and curious about him. I liked the little meet cute that they had, and they're kind of just getting to know each other. So that's kind of a bit of just what this is. It's small town romance with some hard-hitting topics, and I did enjoy what I did read. I'll have to pick it up again. My copy has kind of gotten ruined because I was traveling with it, so it is what it is. I suppose it's not in the condition I necessarily want it to be, but that's okay. Hopefully I'll be able to pick that back up again soon when I feel a little more up to it, or if it makes it into a video or something like that, but that's Archer's Voice. The next book I have is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood, I have read both The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain, both of which I gave 5 stars to. She's become a new favorite author of mine, and definitely an autobi author. There's something about her books, the way she writes them, I get hooked every time. At this point, having 2 5 stars under her belt, of which she's released, aside from her novellas, I have not read those. But given I gave both of her books 5 stars, she's just become autobi author. Like, I'm gonna love her books, hopefully. I'm hoping I'm gonna love this one too, as much as I enjoyed the other ones. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. This one, I think it's fake dating, but it's not like with a twist. Like, I don't think she fake dates him, but I don't entirely know exactly what it's about. I'm sure there's gonna be STEM involved. And I think she's fake dating some guy, and she ends up, I think, dating his brother. I think that's gonna be the love interest. I don't know too much about it, and I kind of want to go in more blind if I can, but it's Ali Hazelwood, so she just kind of, I'm going to pick up her books. I'm going to buy almost all of them aside from her novella series. But I've enjoyed what she's written so far, and I'm just excited to see what she's going to do next. The next book I have is Borrow My Heart by Casey West. So this is Casey West's newest book. If you don't know, Casey West is my favorite author. I got it the same day I got the Ali Hazelwood book. She's definitely autobi at this point because I've loved her book so much. And like I said, she's my favorite author, so I will just read anything she writes. She has this way of writing contemporary that even if I don't love a book by her, like, I'll give a lot of her books like 4 stars. I've given a few of them 5 stars. I love her writing, no matter what it is. I'll reread her 4-star books because I enjoyed them enough. I love her books, and like the lowest star rating I think I've given ever one of her books is like a 3.5. So like, even when I don't love it, like, it's still pretty good. I enjoy it for the most part. I've had much luck with her, and I've read like a lot of her books at this point, so I just enjoy reading her books. This one is about, I think, dog walking. Oh yeah, and fake dating is also in this one. The love interest is being catfished by his online crush, and I think when he confronts about it, she's like, hey, like, just pretends that she's the girlfriend of the photos, and yeah, I'm assuming it involves dogs, because I see a lot of dogs, and lots of animals. Can't buy love, but you can rescue it, so that's what this one's about. I'm just excited to read more from Casey West because I just love her books, and I will just continue to read them. I have the book I bought today, and that is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This book I have already read. I recently read Abby Jimenez's book, Yours Truly. I've read 3 of her books now. I've enjoyed all of the ones I have read. This one of 4 is one of my lowest rated by her, which I think says a lot. The other ones I gave a 4.5 to Life's Too Short, and I gave a 5-star to Yours Truly. So I just kind of want to own all of her books now. So I saw this at the store today, and I was kind of trying to pick a book quickly, so I saw it, and I'm like, you know what, we're just going to buy Power of Your World. So here it is. This book is about this girl, and she is just getting out of this abusive relationship, and she ends up in this small town when her car breaks down, and she meets this guy. The main girl is named Alexis, and the guy, his name is Daniel, and they kind of like helps her with her car, and then they kind of like end up meeting up again at a bar, and they end up going to have a one-night stand. But neither of them are like one-night stand sort of people. Like, this is the first for either one of them, and the two end up kind of starting this relationship. She's from like this big city, and so he's from a small town, and she kind of keeps traveling to this small town to go visit him. So it's like part in the city, part in the small town. And I really like this one. This is one of those small town romances that like the small town didn't necessarily bother me. I think there was definitely like some cheesiness to it, but like I kind of liked the little gimmicks that it threw in, such as like the small town like trying to get them together. I think like those little elements that were just kind of like comedic. I liked that little gimmicky part of it. And then there's the whole like town getting together thing. I think that part of the small town, like I didn't care about like the whole town knowing each other, but I liked the little gimmick part of the small town trying to make these characters get together. I think that was really a fun element to it. But I'm still your local small town romance hater. It's not my favorite trope. I just don't like small town romances for whatever reason. This was one I would enjoy and I would recommend. So I had a good time with this. I'm going to continue reading Abby Jimenez. This was a great one. Then we have Sweet Blue Flowers Volume 2. So I found this, I was in New York with my friend, and we went to a bookstore, and I was like, gonna look at the manga section, because I don't typically buy mangas, but this one is not one I've been able to find at a library at all. So, or like, maybe it's on like a subscription reading service out there. If anyone knows, let me know, because I would like to complete the series at some point. This one doesn't have that many volumes though, so it's only like 4 volumes, so like I don't mind buying it if I have to. The first one I can find in the library, but if I have to buy the rest of the series, I can do that. But I found the second one. So I watched the anime for this a year or two ago, and I really, really loved it, so I wanted to continue on with the manga series because it goes farther than the anime did, so I want to see what happens with these characters and see them get together. This is like a childhood friends to lovers story, and it's also sapphic. It follows these two childhood friends who get reunited and end up becoming friends again and falling for each other. Really simple, but like it's a cute, sweet story. I really liked the anime, and I'm excited to read the manga. I like the first one, I think. It's something that you have to get used to reading a manga, I think, once you watch the anime and like how it's different. So I definitely want to get back into the series and like finish it at some point. But I was surprised to find it there, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy it, because like I don't see it at my local bookstore that often, so I was just like, you know what, we're just gonna pick it up, and hopefully I can find the rest of the series too. Otherwise I'll order it eventually, but I'm glad to have this. Then we have 21 Proms by a bunch of different authors. So this is an anthology about proms, and I had started this a few years ago, and I got to Live a Brave story, and that's when I DNF'd it. So I was quite a bit of the ways through this one, and after Live a Brave story, like I just couldn't continue reading it because Live a Brave's story has like a bestiality part in it. So I think when I'm just gonna pick this back up again, I'm just gonna skip Live a Brave story, because I don't need to be reading about that. And it kind of grossed me out, and I couldn't like pick this book back up again without thinking about it. So hopefully that is not the trend now. I think the story's kind of like left me at this point. It's not in my brain. I will not be rereading that story, because no. I didn't want to finish it, and like I don't really remember my thoughts and feelings on the short stories as a whole. I do want to read more anthologies because I do like them, and I want to find more authors to be like, oh, this author, I like the way they write. I want to pick up more of their books, you know? Kind of see what works for me, what doesn't. I don't do like more reading blogs dedicated to anthologies, but anyways, I saw this at a thrift store, and I picked it up, and I'm glad to have it. The next book I have is The Selection by Kiera Cass, but it is in Spanish. So while I was in Peru, I went on a mission trip and to Peru, which was a grand old time. But to kind of like get like a memory, I want to see if I can find, like when I go to different countries, like my favorite book in other languages. So Selection is I think probably the most sentimental book that I've ever read, because it's what got me into reading in the first place and made me want to become a writer, and just kind of started so many things for me. and so it kind of will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason. So I definitely picked it up to be the selection. So I got all my friends to like sign it and like write like a little message or whatever they want to do in here, so that I'll have that to remember them by, which will be really sweet. And then also it's in Spanish, so like I'm never gonna read this, obviously. Like I'm probably gonna read it in English unless I learn Spanish and decide to go back to this, but I just wanted to own a copy just so I have, and now I have like a third edition of this book. So I have the paperback, the special edition hardcover, and now this copy in Spanish. And it's cool seeing how like it's different in another country. Like it's much smaller, it being, because usually it's like pretty thick, or more thick than like this anyway. Like it's a shorter book, but like it's not, this makes it look really tiny, but like it's big and tall that wise. So interesting to see how like editions are different in other countries. So the next book I have is Cinderella is Dead by Kalynn Byron. So I picked this book up before I left. I found it at a thrift store and picked it up, and then I just didn't end up reading this one when I brought it with me. Didn't end up getting around to this one, but I believe all I really know about this one is it's a Cinderella retelling, and I was really surprised to find it, because this is like relatively newer, and a lot of times it's harder to find newer titles at thrift stores, but I did find it, so I was like, you know what, I'm picking this up. But this one is like a Cinderella retelling, and I believe it's sapphic, and that's all I really know about this one. So I'm excited to give it a chance and read it. I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I'm pretty excited about this one. The next book I have is Practice Make Perfect by Sarah Adams. So this book I did read while I was in Peru. I listened to the audiobook of it and I loved it. This is one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I gave it 5 stars. This is also the first small town romance I've ever given 5 stars to. So congrats to Sarah Adams for accomplishing that. Not only that, like the small town element of this story I genuinely enjoyed. So that says a lot, because I feel like for me to like a small town romance, I have to like a small town. So I guess this was the case here. It wasn't too over the top for me to be like, this is ridiculous, but it was just like cozy and fun enough that I enjoyed it. So I really love this book. It has practice dating in it. If you haven't heard about it, I feel like it's been pretty hyped up recently, and I think well deserved. Sarah Adams wrote the cheat sheet, which I did read, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like a 4.5, and this one I loved even more, so now I have to go back and read When in Rome, because this one was such a win for me that like, I'm like, I have to go read her other books. And I want to go like read, I have to read her Blacklist now, but like I also want to read the first book in the series because I enjoyed this one a lot. So this book follows Will and Annie, and Will is like the bodyguard of, I believe, the protagonist from the first book, and Annie is like gonna be her sister-in-law. And so they kind of, I think, probably met in When in Rome is my assumption, because that's what it kind of like led me to believe. And so Annie is really persistent about getting a husband. She's like kind of like, it's time, like I want to settle down, you know. But she's kind of not really had that much experience when it comes to dating. And so she's on this one date and it's going really terribly. Like the guy that she is with is like calling his friend. He's like, hey, can you call me to get out of this? And she overhears this, so she's not thrilled about it. And she ends up confiding in Will, and the two of them end up like practice dating, and he kind of like helps her out and gives her like tips on like how to, I guess, date or that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a fun element, but then they like fall for each other. I like that the mutual pining element of this book. I think that is kind of what sold it for me. The mutual pining was done really, really well. I liked, we got to see from both characters' point of view. And I think that's something Sarah Adams does really well. She does mutual pining, and both the books that I've read both have had mutual pining in it. And I feel like both times were done pretty well. I feel like this one even more so. I just really liked that element. I liked that like Will was like, I say bad boy with a heart of gold. Like he wasn't like grumpy or anything like that. Like maybe like a little bit, but like I found him just like really sweet, and I liked his relationship with Annie. And I love Annie as a character. I found her really relatable and fun. I just really love both Will and Annie a lot, and I loved their love story together, and this is definitely one of my favorite books of this year. So as soon as I get 5 stars, I'm like, I gotta own it. Plus this cover is so pretty, like the flowers, I love her outfit, so cute, and like, you know, the tattoo, like look, like this cover is just gorgeous. Like it's so cute. I absolutely love this book, and I'm glad to have read it, and I'm glad it lived up to all my expectations. Then we have Angel Fall by Susan E. So this is a book that I bought before I left and then read it while I was away. So I gave this one 3 stars. This one was about, it's like a pretty old YA book back in like the YA dystopian era. It's like a post-apocalyptic angel book, and it follows Ronan Penryn, and her sister, her disabled sister, has recently been taken by these angels, and so she ends up teaming up with this fallen angel to help get her sister back, and she'll give him his wings back, I guess. That's the plot of this one. I give it like 3 stars. It was just like an okay reading experience. I liked it, but like it wasn't anything like grand special, you know, like it was just a fine reading experience. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series because I read the plot of the second book and it sounds just the same as this one. So if you have read the series and you think it's worth continuing, let me know about it down below. But it was an okay one. I'm glad I got around to it because I did want to read this one, and I was glad to have found it because that kind of encouraged me to pick it up. But overall, like, it was just fine. Then we have The Loose Ends List by Carrie Firestone. I also bought this one before I left. I didn't end up finishing this one. I DNF'd it because I just did not like it. I don't plan to continue on with this book. But this one is about this girl, and she finds out that her grandma is dying, and her grandma has booked this like cruise for all of them to go on. Only at the end of this cruise, she'll not be coming back with them. It's like this euthanasia cruise, so like a bunch of sick people are on this cruise, and then essentially they get like euthanized, I guess, at the end of the cruise. So I just wasn't a fan of this one. I didn't like the themes of this book. I didn't like the way that they were handled. I don't feel like it was, despite like the sad element to it, I didn't feel all that sad to me. And there was a romance in here that I just did not care about, so there's nothing gripping me to continue on with this book because I just didn't like anything. I didn't like what it was trying to say. I didn't like a lot of it. And I wish I kind of knew, I think, more about the plot before I went into it because I wasn't a fan. So this exists. I suppose it's an old YA, and I'm finding a lot of the old YA that I am picking up I'm not enjoying. So I don't know. Maybe we're just like in a new era. So I'm just not caring about. I don't know what it is. There's some stuff I'm like, that's great, but I feel like a lot of stuff that wasn't typed in the day just hasn't been worth the read. I haven't loved them. So anyways, this exists. Finally, we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, which is probably my current favorite book of the year. So I picked this up. I read this while, again, I was in Peru while we were doing work projects. This is such a cute time. Like, honestly, if you're going to pick up one book from this video, you should pick up this one. This was so, so cute. I absolutely loved it. I adored the characters. This is definitely my favorite Abby Jimenez by far. It follows Jake and Brianna, and there's like a fake dating element. They both have had like really bad luck when it comes to relationships. She just got divorced, and so because of this, she's kind of not believing in love anymore. She doesn't want to get married again. She doesn't want to go through all of that again because she doesn't really trust people anymore. Like, this kind of divorce ruined her because he cheated on her, and so she's just kind of done with relationships. And so she meets Jake, and their first interaction doesn't really go well, and she's not really thrilled about him, and he's kind of like freaking out because he has social anxiety, so he just thinks he's done everything wrong. And he ends up writing her a letter, and this kind of like changes things between them. And he's also donating a kidney to her brother, but he's doing it anonymously, so like it's not something she's super like aware. Like, he's not doing it to be like for her, you know, necessarily. Like, he is doing it for her to help her out, but like also it's not to like woo her, like not with like the wrong intentions, if that makes sense. Just kind of doing it out of like the goodness of his heart. So anyways, so she also ends up like fake dating him because he was in a relationship and they broke up, and now his ex-girlfriend is dating and getting married to his brother, and so his family's really supportive of him, and they're like, we won't like go to the wedding, like we're here to support you and stuff like that. And he wants to convince them that like he wants to support his brother, and he doesn't like want his brother to be like, I don't know, looked down upon because of this, and because he can realize that they're happier, and he's like able to just like turn the other cheek about this whole situation. And so he ends up saying that he's a girlfriend, so his family will like calm down a little bit. And so the two of them end up like dating each other as well, and there's like a little pen pal relationship, and it's friends to lovers. It's so cute. Like, if you're gonna read a one Abby Jimenez, this is the one to pick up. I mean, honestly, you couldn't go wrong with any of her books. I really love this one. This one's definitely my favorite. I kind of knew from the plot that it would be my favorite, and I'm so glad I enjoyed it. So yeah, I love this. It's my favorite book of the year so far. It was a good time, so I highly recommend this one. So there you have it. Those are all the books that I have bought recently. I've definitely read quite a few of them, which doesn't usually happen a lot of the time. Most of them I have not read. There's still quite a few in here I haven't read that I would like to get around to hopefully soon. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked, be sure to give it a big fat thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of this lovely face. And I'll talk to y'all soon in a new video. Bye!